Can you believe we're talking about our 20
20
year
years.
church
Crazy.
anniversary?
Very excited.
Yeah, and 30-year wedding anniversary.
That's right. Non-Christian, went to church with my grandparents, but that was about it.
Stole his offering money.
Yeah, I would go use my offering money that my grandma gave me with the pastor's son to play video games and buy candy during church.
Yeah.
So I understood church, but I didn't know Jesus, didn't have a relationship with God. It wasn't until I was 21 that I became a Christian, and that's when I met her. It took about a month for my salvation experience to happen.
Yeah.
And so I thought I could do church, but then when I met God, everything changed. As a result of that, there was a progression of serving. I didn't realize this, but we did everything in the church that we were at. I mean, I was an usher, we were greeters, youth ministry, you name it, we did it all, not realizing that God was really preparing us. And we took the youth ministry from about 25 or 30 kids to over 300 when we left, all volunteer.
Do you remember the moment when God spoke to us about where we were supposed to go and how that happened?
Absolutely. 2001, we had been serving in youth ministry for a long time, and I think we both felt like there was going to be a change. It was very unsettling for both of us. And so we prayed, and we felt like the Lord said, I want you to go plant a church. I had to go out of town, and I woke up that morning and I said, honey, I feel like today God's going to give us an answer of what we're supposed to do, where we're supposed to go. I come back that evening, and I remember driving in, and God had spoke to me. Like, I know exactly where we're supposed to go. So she was at home. She met me in the driveway with the kids in tow, and we meet, and I go, I know where we're supposed to go. And she goes, I know where we're supposed to go. And so we had this little argument of, you tell me, I'll tell you.
But you have to understand, anywhere in the world was open. Any country, any city,
we
any
decided
state,
anywhere. We could go anywhere.
Anywhere.
And so we argued for a few minutes, and I said, okay, I'm just gonna count to three, and we're both gonna say.
Yeah, because he was like, you go first. And I'm like, no, you go first. And he's like, no, you. And I was like, you're the head of the house, you go first. And he was like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do 1, 2, 3, and then we're gonna say it at the same time.
Yeah, so I said 1, 2, 3, and we both said Charlotte. Now, shocking, because neither one of us had ever been to Charlotte. We had only driven through the city one time. We didn't know anybody here. We didn't have any connections here. When you hear that story, you're like, there's no way that's real. But that's how much God was trying to just sow into our hearts exactly what we were gonna do. And when you look over 20 years, you're kind of blown away. As that was the beginning point. We can say, yes, God, we'll move. We'll pick up our family. We'll go to a city we've never been to, do something we've never done. We have no idea how to do it, and we're probably not gonna get any help. We can always go back to that driveway and remember God told us to be here, and He'll be here while we're here.
So we ended up getting the 10th on our list school building that was available. I think it was the dirtiest, oldest school that we could possibly find.
We actually got invited to Atlanta to meet Dennis and Colleen Rouse, pastor. They were pastoring a church. They'd been there for like 15, 16 years. And he asked me, he goes, hey, what's your vision for the church? Now, first of all, I didn't even know what vision was, but I just said, hey, I just want to be a church that reaches people. I feel like there are people who are far from God. I feel like there are people that have been burned by church, and I want to meet everybody from both ends and in between.
So he said the unchurched and the overchurched, that's my goal.
Yeah. And so he said, well, what are you going to call it? I said, Freedom House. He goes, oh, that sounds like a drug rehab facility. And I was like, well, the reason why we picked Freedom House is John 8. Jesus is talking to the Jews that believed in him. And he said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And that jumped off the page at both of us. And we realized that we were going to be a church that spoke the truth, and that truth would bring freedom. We didn't know how to start a church. I read one book, Purpose Driven Church by Rick Warren. That was my church planting book. I actually read it 14 times. Because of what he did, we decided, all right, we're going to have a big Saturday, And that first weekend, we had about maybe 60 people show up because we had people from Richmond that came.
We did an ice cream giveaway the day before.
We had met remember that family we met that owned the ice cream truck? And so they came and they did the ice cream truck. And then our first service we had on Sunday morning. I remember the message that I preached.
Do you know why I don't remember it?
Because you were in children's ministry. Matter of fact, you were in children's ministry for probably 5 years. I would say technically the first service, which we started September the 8th of 2002, we had about 35 people that started the church and that's including kids. One of the things that we did, our marketing plan, you may remember this, we did a mailing. And so one of the things that we would do is we would be out in the community, whether we were at a gas station, a grocery store, or at Walmart, we're walking through and we're handing out cards to people, inviting them to church.
I moved to Charlotte in the university area of 2002, and the reason I came to Charlotte was because I had gotten accepted to be on staff with a college ministry called InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. So I was doing Walmart full-time, and then the college ministry part-time. And one day, I ran into Pastor Penny, according to her.
I actually ran into him with my cart.
I don't remember all that, but I'm sure that's probably what happened. So I showed up that Sunday. It was probably their third or fourth service. I didn't know that. But when I walked out, I knew that that was where I needed to be. I was like, you know what? This is where God is going to challenge me, and I need to stay here.
And so he helped put chairs away, and that was the beginning of Michael's ministry. So he was at Walmart waiting for us to meet him.
He claims to love setup and breakdown.
He does. He does.
He likes setup and breakdown, and I never could understand, but I'm just thankful because it's
best thing to build teams in any church is setup and breakdown.
Second time I was there, third time, I was like, well, these chairs can't stay in this gym for school, so just help him put up chairs for me. I also helped break down all the equipment on the platform, and I enjoyed the setup and breakdown and the camaraderie and the physical activity, so I remember a lot of that every weekend.
I just knew God was taking us to a new season, something was going to change. And so we looked at different churches for like 6 months, visited a lot of different churches in the area, and we found Freedom House online and decided to try one Sunday. We were meeting in University Meadows Elementary School. We came into the cafetorium and never forget that first service. When we left that day, I remember looking at Tammy and just saying, this is it. Yep. Just always felt like home.
We bought a house in Monroe, and the house came with a trampoline. And this was before kids, so naturally we didn't need a trampoline. And so we posted it on Craigslist, and this family responded to the ad. They came to the house. It was a wife, a husband, and 2 little girls.
Right.
And as they were coming to pick up the trampoline, they were talking about their church, and they said, do you guys have a church? And we said, no, but we're looking for one. We had tried so many churches in Charlotte and just couldn't find one that fit. And they said, you should check out ours, it's Freedom House. So we waited a couple weeks, we went, and man, it was just an incredible experience. Pastor Troy was preaching, the worship was on point, and we just felt the presence of the Holy Spirit.
So going into an elementary school cafetorium was a very unique experience and took some growing, I think, for us to kind of get used to.
I loved it. Matt, he had to experience it a few times for it to really grow on him.
Honestly, the only thing that kept me coming back was Pastor Troy's preaching, his message.
And it wasn't long before Freedom House really felt like home.
Yeah.
We found Freedom House about 16 years ago. We were doing an online search, trying to find a church that really we could plug into that was local.
We just decided we needed to be somewhere where we could plug in locally and really pour our lives into the church.
Because the very first time we walked in Freedom House, Pastor Michael said, hey, welcome to Freedom House, and gave me a big old hug. And I'm like, wow, that's different.
Yeah.
Never walked into a church before that gave me a hug on the way in and just made me feel that welcome.
Yeah, and the preaching right away was all about Jesus, and it was very just centered on God and centered on the Word, and we knew right away that that's exactly what we were looking for.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about Pastor Troy was he went really deep, but made it very practical to where It wasn't over my head, but man, I could take it and apply it to my life that day.
Yeah, we kind of knew what it took to make church happen, but had never seen it in a school. And when you can turn a school cafeteria and gymnasium into a church, it's pretty amazing. And I quickly realized it took a lot of commitment. If people weren't committed, you know, the church wasn't going to grow. And clearly they were committed, because it was amazing to see what was going on.
At that time, we were driving from, we lived in the university area. We would drive past the property that we now have a building on.
27 acres of land. And here we are, nobody knew who we were. We just had a handful of people in the church. And Troy said, I'm gonna call the owner and see if he's gonna sell it to us.
Yep.
And I was like, all right. And he calls the owner, and the owner all but hangs up on him, says no.
When it came to our first building, I remember when Pastor Troy and them, when it was just a dream, we didn't even have land we were thinking of. And I'll never forget the name of that first building campaign that we were raising support for.
From the church perspective, we started doing some campaigns around trying to raise money.
The first one was called On the Brink.
On the brink. Because we're getting on the brink, like getting ready to cross over the Jordan.
Yeah, it was 1.5 million for 27 acres, and it was 1.5 million more than what we had. The owner of the property comes and he goes, listen, I've tried every which way to get this property sold, and I'm about to lose a big tax benefit, and I just need you guys to buy this property, and I'll even finance it for you. Would you please buy the property?
If you can just give me $200,000, I will finance the 1.3, interest only, for 3 years. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Now, we didn't have $200,000. But God told us to do it, and so.
But he signed his name on that agreement anyway.
Yeah, I signed that agreement and just believed in faith that God would provide the finances, and he did.
Our next building campaign was called Imagine a Place.
Yep.
And getting people to believe and see something that wasn't here yet.
We moved from the school we were at, University Meadows. They had built a school across the street, so we moved there in 2009.
Which smelled a little better, but was still a school because it was newer. And then it was across the street from the property that had been purchased, which was exciting because we could at least look across the street and know where we were going.
We wanted to be able to say, across the street is our new church home.
Yep.
Think about how the people had to use their faith, because at that point we hadn't built a building yet.
One of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to get everybody onto the property so they could experience and feel the ground underneath their feet and be there. And so we rented a huge tent.
We had to clear the field and cut down all the briar patches and everything, put this massive tent up.
And we decided to do something a little bit different on the groundbreaking. Remember what we did?
We didn't do a shovel, we did a backhoe.
Absolutely. We got into a backhoe, and I learned how to work the backhoe. And so I got in there, and the band was playing. We had a service. After the service, I got in there, and we went down. It was awesome. It was epic.
The hype and excitement of that transition to, man, we're gonna finally be in our own building.
And to see something that you've given towards, you've poured into, you've prayed for, become a reality was pretty special. Now, me being on the setup and teardown team, I miss that, but it's also pretty awesome to walk in on Sunday and like everything's ready to go.
So once we finally got it built, we only could put 5 children's classrooms in the building.
Yeah, we built this building during the recession, and the bank decided that they weren't going to loan us the amount of money that was originally intended. And so we couldn't even add the kids' wing to the building at that point. And we pushed through. Pastor Penny came up with this amazing idea to keep the kids over at Stony Creek Elementary, and they would come into service with us, and they would
participate in worship.
Yes.
And then we'd release them onto a double-decker party bus.
It was an English red party bus.
We went from the school to the new building, and within 2 weekends, we grew 35%. I mean, the church just...
Did your preaching get better?
Nope.
Did the children's ministry get better?
It probably got a little worse because we had to split all the kids up.
No. It's something about building a building that says to people, we are now a permanent mark in this community, and we aren't going anywhere. So putting a stake in the ground is very important, and that showed us, because in one weekend our church grew 35-40%.
But it was exciting because like here we are in this brand new facility, but God's moving so fast, we already need to expand it. So that was, the expectation was still there. It's not like, hey, we've made it here and we've crossed the finish line, now let's kind of coast. It was, hey, we're in this building, now let's make it bigger.
Hey, I'm Troy Maxwell, pastor of Freedom House Church right here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And hey, I'm Penny Maxwell, and these are our kids. We just wanted to invite you and your family to come join me and my family for one of our weekend services at Freedom House.
That's right, at Freedom House, we love people.
We started thinking about really the idea of being the local church in every local community. But we also knew that we had to expand our building. We knew we needed more classrooms. We needed to get the kids out of the school back all together in one room, one space. We decided that we were going to raise some more money and expand, basically double the size of our facility. Add children's class, expand the lobby, add a loft area. And so we went from 750 to around 1100, 1150. And then we added another 7 classrooms, went from 5, created the Connect Lounge, more of a coffee shop, bigger lobby. We had in our mind that we didn't want to just have a big auditorium, we also wanted to have a big lobby. We were a fellowship church. We love to hang out with people. And so we believe that just as much ministry happens in the lobby as it does in the auditorium.
I'll never forget something he said as he got up to the church. He announced the plan and what we were gonna do, because we were busting at the seams, and we needed to do some different things to grow. And he got up and he told the church, he said, "You guys, I am so excited as we take this next step." He said, "But I want you to know this is the cool thing. We have all the money we need." And he laid out the budget and he said, "We have every dime that we need." He said, "But it's just in your pocket." And then what we did is we put plastic up and we began to take the walls out, and the building just began to grow and expand. More concrete got poured, and then we added in a whole new wing, kids' space.
It's fantastic. And then we started to think about, all right, we did this here in the university area. We really want to be a church that people can drive to within 15 to 20 minutes. We started to think, all right, where could we go next? And that's when really cool stuff started to happen.
We had been looking around for a second campus, and we just said, "God, wherever you want us to go." We had been looking around the south part of Charlotte.
We had a snow day here and we decided to cancel services, but some people were already on the way. And so we had a very small service. We live streamed it. We decided, hey, why don't we go out for lunch afterward and just hang out a little bit, since it's just a small group. So we did. We went to Jim and Nick's barbecue, hung out for a little while. And I remember Pastor Troy sitting across from a gentleman, and the gentleman slid him a piece of paper.
He reads the piece of paper and he goes, "Oh, that's nice," and he pushes it back over to the guy. I said, "Troy, read it again." And it says, "Give Troy and Penny the South End building." And Troy said, "Well, I just got to ask you one question. Are there strings attached?" And he goes, "Because if there are, I'm going to push it back again." And I'm thinking, I'm waiting for the guy's answer, and he goes, "No, Pastor Troy, no strings attached." So that was the beginning of us acquiring. It was a shell of a building. We had to sink in $3 million.
No, I mean, it was bad.
No plumbing, no AC,
no parking,
no flooring.
No flooring. I mean, we had to gut the entire building, which was fantastic. I mean, it was a great process.
So we put $3 million into that, and our kingdom builders stepped up again, and we opened that campus not long after it. We had South End come to life.
Yep, and we had no idea the influence that campus would have. After we started South End, we had cast the vision to start another campus the following year, which we knew we wanted to do in the Lake Norman area. We purchased a sound system for the school to invest in the school, which we would do often around the community, because we started in the school, we wanted to give back to the school. So we do that at schools all over the city. And at Huff High, we had done the same thing, and they invited us, says, "Why don't you, start a church here?" And so we did. And so, which is crazy.
We go back to set up and break down.
Right. And so And it was great. I mean, the church grew, it started to expand, and with that happening, we immediately said, well, we need to find a building for this place. Especially since we had done setup and breakdown in the past, we were able to, kind of do 2.0.
And guess who led that?
Pastor Michael.
Pastor Michael
He's
did.
the one. He did it.
Yep.
And he loved it. And he loved it. And if we ever do it again, he'll probably be the guy that leads it again.
Lake Norman, we were both part of the launch team there, partly because it was going to be set up and breakdown, which South End was not.
We're the OGs.
Yeah, and I was one of the only people that had been around when we did set up and breakdown. Plus, it kind of falls in my wheelhouse. I still love that aspect. I love the camaraderie it builds between that team. I was a little older when we launched Lake Norman, so my physical body responded a little differently, but I still loved it. Our kids got involved. Our kids still talk about the setup and breakdown and how much they enjoy doing that. So it was good for our family to do all that together and enjoy that. So we found a facility that we could do a lease to purchase, and we began the renovations of that facility that at the time was a workout facility. Had been a lot of the things prior to that, but and it's kind of cool because you see people that come to Lake Norman now that are like, I used to work out in this building. And so we began the renovation and we're able to get in there, and now we've moved from that lease to where we've actually purchased that building.
Lake Norman is actually our fastest growing campus. So as soon as we moved in that building, again, something happens when you make a permanent stake in the ground. People now understand that you're not going anywhere.
That's right.
Something that I appreciate about Freedom House and each one of our campuses is that you can walk into any of them and you feel like you're at Freedom House, whether you're at South End, Lake Norman, or Central. Even if you've never been to any of the other ones, if you go from Central to South End, you know you're at Freedom House. There's just something that's very distinct about it, even though it's very South End or very Lake Norman. And so that's something that's always exciting when we take people that have only been at Central to South End or one of the other locations.
I think we all realize that the last 3 years have been extremely challenging. We have seen a tremendous turn in our church. I believe that when the men go up, the church goes up. And so what we decided to do is we're gonna put our money where our mouth is, and then God puts on our radar a lodge, a mountain lodge, a retreat center for men. And so at the beginning of the year of 2022, we decided, you know what, we're gonna invest in our men. We're not just gonna keep talking about it, we're gonna invest. And so we purchased 45 acres in Marion, North Carolina, a beautiful piece of property.
God has a calling on their life, and I believe that is going to be a place that they're going to find their calling. Yeah. And our leaders have already went up there. We've completely bathed that place in prayer, and we just know that life change is going to take place on that property. So I'm super excited about the future. I'm super excited about our men's movement and what's going on there. And Strong continues to grow because I feel like the men are really rising up.
Because there's a couple areas in society that the devil was strategically attacking, and one is the men. Right. And the other area was our children.
Caused us to really take a step of faith, because for 20 years, I said, we're never gonna start a school. We're never gonna do anything like that. Matter of fact, people would come up to me all the time and go, hey, when are you gonna start a school?
And
I
we'd
said,
say,
never. When you pay for it, when you run it, when you do everything. And we couldn't sit by and just not do anything.
I said, we have to do something.
So we started Freedom Academy.
And it is
And we're just in the
incredible.
infancy part of it, but we know it's gonna be a huge impact. The legacy that we wanna leave, I believe that these buildings will be bigger, will be influencing more people, all not in the memory of Troy and Penny, but in the influence of the vision that we left to equip people to experience Christ's freedom in their everyday lives. And so my prayer, my heart is that when we're gone, that people will grab hold of the handles of freedom and be able to continue to ride that wave throughout history, and not just be a church that's one generational, but a church that's gonna be multi-generational, which doesn't happen very often. One of the things I've learned in leadership, especially being a Christian leader, pastor, is there's a big difference between success and significance. Success is what happens to you, significance is what happens through you. And that's what I want us to leave as a legacy, is not what happened to Troy and Penny or even to Freedom House Church, but what happened through us. The legacy that we leave, the significance that we leave in the foundation of not just Charlotte, but maybe around the country, the young pastors that we've had influence in.
And that's why it's so important that we're doing what we're doing and that we're partnering with the people we're partnering with, and why each person at Freedom House has such a significant part to play in that, because it's not just Troy and Penny doing something. Troy and Penny are just two people. It's not the faith of one or two, but it's the faith of many who joined in along the way and chose to accept the call. It wasn't just Troy and Penny that accepted the call. It's a lot of people that put their hand to the plow and said, we want to be a part of this because we are choosing significance as well. And that's a big deal.
Yep.
I know for us, some of the teachings and things we did early on, I remember we first started having kids, some of the stuff we learned early on was huge in the way that we parented, in the way that we spoke blessing over our kids. And that just revealed to me that, hey, Sunday the church is needed, but it's for the purpose that people go out and live their life, because that's the brunt and bulk of how we walk out our life. It's not just in a Sunday service.
And I don't even want to say too much, because it's like I don't want to put limits on God. I just feel like the sky's the limit with what Freedom House can become. And it's not about the buildings, it's not about that, it's about the people. You know, you see incredible leaders here. You see incredible families that just love God. You see people getting discipled, people getting changed. But in 18 years, we've seen a church that met in a school that you saw the glimmer of something special turn into a multi-site church of thousands that is respected around the country and around the world. And to see our pastor's vision advance has been truly special.
I'm proud of the pastors sticking to their guns in the past 20 years. No matter what has come, where they've gone, or what's going on, they have stuck to their guns on what God has given them.
Our reach is well beyond the United States, and we're seeing lives change across the globe because of Freedom House and the messages we're able to bring to them. So where are we going in the future? I believe that God's just going to continue to entrust Freedom House with more properties, with more campuses, with more reach through our online campus.
The one thing I love about Pastor Troy and Penny is that they're always casting vision. There's always a next step. And because they know that where there is no vision, the people will perish. So it's always been, hey, it was always, we're going to get in a permanent facility. And then when we got in the permanent facility, it was, hey, we're going to expand this thing and make a huge kids wing and be ready for super growth. And then we added on to the auditorium. And then as soon as we got in that space, it was now let's go multi-site. And which is always exciting to get behind, and always good to know that they're always tuning into God, saying, hey God, where do you want us to take ground next? Because we're not going to stop. We're not going to sit and, coast into retirement. We're going to keep pushing.
I'm most proud that we're still married, we still love each other, and we're still friends.
And we're still standing strong. The church is still, I would say the same thing, that we lasted through the storms. Because so many times, unfortunately, you see where the storms and the winds are blowing, and they blow hard. When you're in ministry, and a lot of people think being the one on the platform is great, but the one on the platform is the one who also takes the most heat. And one of the things that we said a long time ago is none of it means anything if we don't come through all of that and weather the storms well.
We both want to finish well. So another 20 years, I'll be 73. I'll still be going strong, still doing CrossFit.
And I'll still be cooking, watching you do CrossFit.
Right. But I want to finish well. I think we want to finish well.
Yeah, we point to little old couples that are walking down the beach holding hands, and we go, I'm starting to cry. We say that I want that to be us, where we can look back and say, with every ounce of our breath, with every ounce of who we are, when we stand before the Lord, that we literally answered the call and did every single thing He asked us to do, even when it was hard.
We fulfilled the vision.
When it was difficult.
That's right.
We said yes to Him, and that when we stand before Him, that we won't have any regrets, that will say it was hard, it was difficult, but we never quit. We never stopped. We never quit pushing forward.